I've spent 30 years coaching leaders across every industry: technology, financial services, healthcare, manufacturing, retail. And in all that time, across all of those organizations, I've heard the same sentence more times than I can count. I just want my team to take ownership of their work. It's the universal lament of the modern executive. They look at their teams, they see a lack of initiative, and they conclude that the problem is a deficit of character. They want people who care deeply and act proactively. They want zealots. But they feel surrounded by zombies. I'd like to offer a different explanation. Not a comfortable one, but I think a true one. The reason your team is not taking ownership of their work is that you have not taken ownership of the environment in which they do it. There's a profound paradox at the heart of the ownership complaint. Leaders demand ownership from their teams while simultaneously failing to recognize that they have abdicated their own most critical responsibility. Most leaders were never taught that the environment creation is the job. Think about how we promote people. We take the best engineer, the top salesperson, the most reliable accountant. We reward them for their personal output. Then one day we hand them a team and tell them, get results. Nobody hands them a manual that says, your output is no longer your work. It's the conditions under which your people work. We've trained generations of leaders to be performers, not architects. We've taught them to manage tasks, track metrics, and enforce compliance. We've not taught them how to build psychological safety, how to design for autonomy, or how to systematically remove the friction that drains human energy. I call this the environment ownership gap. It's the space between the ownership a leader demands from their team and the ownership the leader has failed to take over the environment itself. And here's the principle that follows directly from it. Ownership is not a character trait. It's an environment condition. You cannot demand ownership from people who do not have the authority, the safety, or the clarity to execute it. You cannot ask your team to be innovative. If you have to build a system that punishes failure, you cannot ask them to be proactive. If you require approval for every minor decision, you cannot ask them to care deeply about the customer. If you measure them solely on call volume or lines of code, the environment you create dictates the behavior you get. If you have a team of zombies, it's because you have built or inherited and failed to change a zombie-making environment. We don't have to guess what it looks like when a leader makes this shift. One of the most famous engineering achievements in history was the direct result of a leader who understood his only job was to build the environment. In 1943, the U.S. War Department needed to get a jet airfighter functional to counter a new German threat. They gave Lockheed Aircraft Corporation the impossible deadline. In 180 days, Kelly Johnson, Lockheed's chief engineer, accepted the challenge. He did not build a new management hierarchy. He did not improve a new reporting system. He built a zealot environment. Johnson pulled his team out of the main factory. He put them in a rented circus tent next to a wind tunnel. He stripped away every piece of industrial age bureaucracy. He gave them absolute autonomy over how the work was done. He demanded absolute mastery of their engineering disciplines. He provided a singular, undeniable purpose: build a plane that could win the war. The result was the XB-80 Shooting Star. They delivered it in 143 days, 37 days early. That circus tent became the legendary Skunk Works. Under Johnson's leadership, it went on to deliver aircraft that the rest of the industry thought was impossible, physically impossible. The U-2 spy plane and the Mach 3.2 SR-71 Blackbird. Johnson did not achieve this by micromanaging his engineers or measuring their keystrokes. He achieved it by building a zealot environment and fiercely protecting it from the zombie-making bureaucracy of the parent company. He proved that when you put smart people together, free them from administrative friction, and give them a mission that matters, they'll deliver the impossible. His engineers did not take ownership because they were exceptional people. They took ownership because Kelly Johnson built an environment where ownership was possible. Closing the environment ownership gap requires a fundamental shift in identity. You must stop seeing yourself as the chief problem solver and start seeing yourself as the chief environment architect. When a project fails, your first question should not be who messed up. Your first question must be, what is it about the environment that I created that made this failure possible? How do you actually do this? You start by making the invisible visible. You use frameworks like VSEM, vision, strategy, execution, and metrics, to ensure that every person on your team knows exactly how their daily work connects to the ultimate goal of the organization. You stop measuring physical activity and start measuring outcomes. You stop rewarding individual heroics and start rewarding the people who elevate the performance of the entire team. You stop trying to fix people and you start trying to fix the system. If you want a practical model for what this looks like, look at Dwight D. Eisenhower. The night before the D-Day invasion, he wrote a press release to be issued in the event that the invasion failed. It praised the troops, the airmen, and the Navy, and it ended with these 5 words: "If any blame or fault attaches to the attempt, it's mine alone." Before the outcome was known, he took full and complete responsibility for the environment he had built and the decisions he had made. And when the invasion succeeded, he gave all the credit to the troops. That's the standard. Your job is not to be the hero. Your job is to create the environment where heroes can emerge. When you take absolute ownership of the environment, a remarkable thing happens. Your team will finally feel safe enough to take ownership of their work. Thank you.